rather short contribution in 1976 to Acta Hungarica, and then the Sharestania in itself was discussed twice by Rika Gieslen in an early article prior to her first book on the administrative geography of Iran, and then in Maria Masuk's Festschrift, which appeared less than a couple of years ago. And Rika once again sort of played down the importance of the Sharestania in constructing the administrative structure of and the administrative geography of the Sasanian Empire. One thing that I believe important is that MK, that is the only independent manuscripts preserving many of the non-religious texts, is a very ancient manuscript, which does not mean much, because what is a very ancient manuscript for us is anyhow a manuscript written well into Islamic times, but at least it shows that this part of literature was part of the oldest surviving Zoroastrian heritage. The Sharestania Iranshar was written, in Marquardt's opinion, in the 8th century during the Caliphate of Al-Mansur. This depends on his identifying twice the name of Al-Mansur in the Sharestania, once in the oldest one in the oldest nucleus, and once in the final passages. But in his addition to Raj Daryai has shown that the first identification of Al-Mansur is probably not correct. The Sharestania, the cities of Iranshar in itself, says of itself that it is a memorial describing in detail which sovereign founded each of the cities in the land of Iranshar. Rika's earliest doubt on the Sharestania depended on the fact that she did not believe, she followed Gignoux in saying that the quadripartition of the empire depended mainly was a literary conception, a literary idea, and not really an idea based on historical and primary sources. Ironically, Rika Gieslen herself, in 2000, I believe, or 2001, published the Seals of the Spahbeds, proving that in this discussion between Gignoux and Gnoli, it was Gnoli who proved Gnoli right in saying that the quadripartition of the empire was an administrative reality of the Sasanian period. The other text contained in MK is the Marvels of Sistan, which I'm not going to discuss. Now, a first question is, do these texts, do the texts found in MK, and specifically on the Sharestania, belong to the Huadai Namag? And of course, this is this also entails the discussion of what is the Huadai Namag. Personally, I know that this is not appreciated by many of my Iranian friends, but I follow Yaakov Hamen Antilla in believing that the Huadai Namag was not was not a very large text. Rather, it was, as Hamen Antilla says in his 2018 book, for me, the Huadaina Mag is a book of a very small size, be it of 10, 20, or 30 pages. It contained a list of Persian kings, and its main interest may well have been chronological. At least Hamza, who himself is admittedly specifically interested in chronology, would give us this impression, and Agatia's evidence supports this. It clearly started with Gayomard and continued until the time of its writing, and individual copies may well have been expanded by adding a few lines of the last king of Iran to cover the whole story of pre-Islamic Iran until the conquest. And the key passage is the Huadaina Mag probably contained a rather short and dry account of each king, listing his regnal years, perhaps some throne speeches or maxims, mentions of the foundations of cities and fires, and the main positive events during his reign, such as major victories. So, in fact, I mean, and of course, in general, I mean, I believe that the Huadaina Mag is not the entire Iranian national history as described and studied, for example, by Ehsan Yarshader. Now, do we know any Middle Persian texts matching this description, more or less? In my opinion, we know a text that has the same structure to a certain extent, and that is the paragraph describing the transmission of the Zoroastrian holy texts described contained in Denkard 4, which is to some extent also similar to the last passage of Denkard to Denkard 3. Now, my working hypothesis is that if even an author such as Hamen Antilla, starting from the Islamic evidence and having a very, let's say, restricted view of what the Huadaina Mag was, if even he believes that the Huadaina Mag may have contained a minimum of geographical information, at least that part of geographical information relative to the founding of cities by a sovereign. This may in fact be a further proof of the antiquity, at least of the structure of the Sharistaniya Iran Shar. Moreover, in the Bundayisht, in chapter 9, we have the mention of the memorials of the provinces, which may somehow be something here again corresponding to the to what we have in the Sharistaniya. Can we reconstruct this? My idea is that probably by integrating the different geographical passages, we can get a pattern of interesting information. Moreover, in an article that is to appear in 2001, I have tried to show against Rika Gieselen's most recent paper that in fact the correspondence between Sharistaniya and the data that come from primary administrative sources, that is mainly through glyptics and numismatics, match quite closely. I mean, most of the places mentioned in the Shahristaniya, and often even the way, the name used, are clearly depend on Sasanian evidence. The difference is in the last quarter, in the quarter of the north, that is quite different. I mean, the description contained in the Shahristaniya of the quarter of the north is completely different from the description about the other three quarters of the empire, and probably something went wrong in the very last passages of in the very last paragraphs of the Shahristaniya, showing that let's say that either they were later additions or they are somehow corrupted. So my conclusions are, as you see on the screen, considering Avestan and Pahlavi geographical literature, one can easily see that on the one hand, there is a religious tradition represented by the Avestan text, presenting geographical sections, so there are Middle Persian Zand and books such as the Bundahisht, which contain chapters that ultimately depend on the Zand, but contain information that have been reinterpreted under the Sasanians and adapted to the geographical context of late antique Iran. On the other hand, we also know a tradition, the one that is most clearly attested by the Shahristaniya Iran Shar, which instead goes back to some kind of description of the provinces in Sasanian times. Looking at the list of provinces found in the Shahristaniya, one immediately perceives that the toponyms contained in this text often closely correspond to the names of provinces and cities attested in the administrative glyptics of Sasanian Iran. The geographical chapters of the Bundahisht, together with the evidence found in other Pahlavi books, which is much more sparse, show that in the Sasanian period there must have been some tradition of describing the regions of the empire in a compilatory manner, listing specific geographical characteristics of the land, be they administratives, such as in the Shahristaniya Iran Shar, belonging to the realm of physical geography, as it is the case in the geographical chapters of the Bundahisht, or else more loosely related to the domain of religion and literature. And finally, probably putting together all this information, we may be able to reconstruct to a certain extent the contents of the so-called Ayat-Gharia-i Sharia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Cherti. It was very interesting. I'm sure there are many questions. Let's ask people if they have any questions. I have a question myself, Carlo.
Yes.
Have you had a look on Hudud al-Alam, for example, or other books on Masalik al-Mamalik or something?
Yes, I have. I must say I have had a look at these and also used to some extent Schwartz's volumes, because in fact some of the, of course, some of the geographical knowledge is geographical knowledge that is shared with, well, first of all, in its earliest part with the Baghdadi and Balkhi schools of geographical literature. So it belongs somehow to the earlier parts. What I am trying to show, and I hope that slowly, putting together all the different texts, one can reach some results, is that you cannot date everything to the Islamic period. Of course, we have Islamic passages. For example, in the Shahristaniya, there is a very peculiar passage dedicated to Amol, that first of all is ranked among the in the quarter of the north of Adur Badagan, and it's not really justified. And of course, some names like Kufa or Mosul are clearly names of cities that were founded only in the Islamic period. But still, these are, in my opinion, additions, which cannot justify an entirely late dating of the text. That is, and of course, this is something that Andres has shown, that Miguel has shown clearly in his work with Alberto Cantera and so on. We must never forget that the texts we are working on are texts that were written by persons that were part of an intellectual environment that was already the Islamic one.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Any other questions? So let me ask you, maybe ask you another question. I honestly was not satisfied by Professor Antilla research on the Khodai Namak. As I think you mentioned, I think he has not enough data on Khodai Namak to say that it was very short. What do you think?
Well, the problem is, I think that Hamen Antilla has been somehow misunderstood because he's not saying that there is no Iranian national history. What he's saying is that technically the so-called Khodai Namak was a relatively short source. Now, maybe when he says 10, 20 or 30 pages, that is making it too short. But I think the error, and this is stated quite clearly by Hamen Antilla, is the identification of what he defines as Khodai Namak with the Iranian, with what Ehsani Akhshater has defined as Iranian national history. I believe that in general, of course, this is true mostly for the history of the Sasanian Empire, and is less true for earlier ages. But if of course the information from Islamic, from texts, from books written in the Islamic period, and I would add even taken from books such as the Shahnameh, that is literary work, not historical or historiographical works. is extremely important. I mean, I still believe that in the end, probably the best work on Sasanian history is Christensen. But this does not mean that the Khwadainamad should be identified with the entire tradition. So, I mean, you have a number of different trends and sources, written and oral, and in my opinion, the written ones were probably more than what most scholars believe nowadays, that have that are contained in works not only, for example, Tabari, but also Balami's translation of Tabari, or rewriting of Tabari, that are contained in the epic tradition. The problem is how far it is possible to divide, to choose, to identify the real historical data, separating it from the literary construction. But this is a problem that is that is typical also of the interpretation of Greek historical texts. I mean, the Greek historical texts in the beginning were conceived to be also entertainment. So, I mean, it is not, they were not just dry chronicles preserving only data, but they were meant to be read, to be recited, to be enjoyed by the public. So, I mean, maybe, we should, especially the persons trained in the West and working on Sasanian and in general Iranian history, we should try to adapt our methodology more to the kind of material we're working on.
Okay, thank you very much. So, would you direct the webinar yourself, please, Carlo?
Myself?
Yes, please.
Well, I have to find